Welcome. This is the Rip Griffin Show podcast, a baseball podcast for baseball fans of all ages. Now, here's your host, Rip Griffin.
Hey guys, welcome to this episode of the Rip Griffin Show, episode number 52. This is going to be a great episode tonight. I'm looking forward to it. I've got my co-host, as always, who has his microphone off. Brad, can you hear me? Brad, you want to turn your microphone on?
Hey.
There we go. And we lost him again. He's having some technical difficulties. Oh, there we go. I took him back out of the stream. Sorry. Brad, how's it going, man?
Every week, man. Every week, it's like I'm literally sitting right next to my internet Wi-Fi. So, horrible.
Oh, technical difficulties on tonight's show, but that's okay. We'll work through it. But I'm excited because we have a guest on this episode that is here to talk about the sealed letter of the New York Yankees, and that's Miss Stephanie Stradley. Stephanie, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. How are y'all doing?
Doing great. Thank you for taking the time to come talk to us about this letter that is, we are all waiting for it to be opened so we can hear what exactly is in this letter.
It may or may not be open. It's up to the judge.
Oh, okay. Well,
hasn't the judge already stated that they need to open it?
The way the disposition is now is the Yankees said, no, you don't have to. You don't like. Well, first the judge said, I'm going to unseal it. And then the Yankees like, no, don't do it. And then there was a response to that. And the response is, Yankees, y'all are full of it. So it's interesting. It's an interesting situation because the Yankees are saying, hey, look, we're not even a party to this lawsuit. This letter was given in discovery and it probably shouldn't have been. And the country doesn't need to see it because it's really not bad. But if it gets unsealed, then people will think that it's worse than it is, which is
right. They're trying to say that it could cause reputable damage.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird argument that they're making in their brief. They're saying the letter is not bad. It's not bad. Like if you actually knew what was in the letter, you shouldn't think that it's bad. However, if it gets out, people will take it the wrong way and it will hurt our reputation. And it's kind of a strange argument because in general, you and I, we pay for the courts. You know, we don't have secret courts in the United States. These things are supposed to be open and documents and information are supposed to be open unless there's a really good reason not to open it. And the Yankees are saying, well, we're not a party. This wasn't a part of your reasoning for doing this. So, you should keep it sealed. And then the response to that is, basically the Simpsons, no, you should have to provide it. You provided it already. There's a presumption that those things are going to be seen. And it is kind of strange to say, hey, it's no big deal, but it would hurt our reputation. I mean, it's a very incongruous argument.
It's just interesting because, I mean, to me, like the obvious question is, if the Yankees say that they didn't allege any sign stealing, and Rob Manfred said that there wasn't any type of sign stealing, then just let it come out and be open.
Yeah.
Because I mean, to me, and probably to everybody else that's out there listening and watching, it sounds like they have something to hide, and they don't want this letter to be out because it's going to implicate Rob Manfred, who is gone quote unquote on the record saying that he's a Yankees fan and he enjoys the Yankees.
Well, and what's interesting about this is, okay, and I'm looking at the response to this. It's basically when the Red Sox got punished, and the letter went out saying, "Hey, we're going to punish the Red Sox for using, Apple Watches." he also announced that the MLB investigation had determined the Yankees had, during a prior season, violated a rule governing the use of a dugout phone. According to Manfred's statement, no improper communication in violation of any MLB rules or regulations were involved, right? i.e., no communication of stolen signs occurred, and that the Yankees got fined. Well, then after that, see this little blackout stuff? There's pages and pages of redacted information in the response of, well, we don't know what the redactions are because that's part of what's sealed. Right. But the redactions are in response to saying that there wasn't a rule violation, okay? And we're just supposed to take Manfred's word for it. Now, what's interesting about that is, what's interesting about it is, Jeff Luhnow has, as you know, just filed a lawsuit against the Astros for a breach of contract because he says, hey, look, you didn't have just cause to fire me under the contract. And one of the reasons he said that was that Manfred and Crane came to an agreement to kind of throw him under the bus, right? And so in that particular pleading, he claims all sorts of things that were wrong with the Astros investigation. Well, who knows what happened with the Red Sox investigation or the Yankees investigation?
Right.
What kind of shenanigans went on with that? And, once you kind of open the bottle and say, oh, well, the Astros are all the worst people, but don't look at this other stuff, it kind of creates some problems. Like one of the things that Jeff Luhnow says is the same things that the Red Sox said that they did to make sure that people knew not to steal signs anymore. Like just the communications, like don't do this. Jeff Luhnow says, well, the Astros did all of the same things. Like, so the same things that reduced the punishment to the Red Sox, Jeff Luhnow, at least in his petition, says, hey, I did the same things. So like, why is the treatment different? And what is the blacked out spots? What is the redacted part? Unseal the letter. I mean, if you're going to be open and honest about your investigations, then tell us what it says. Like it's either real bad, like causing reputational damage and things that fans should know, or it's no big deal, but let us decide.
No, absolutely. I agree, because this is just something that, when we talk about Rob Manfred, I mean, we can never understand or really trust what he's going to say, because everything that he said is, you can call it a fabrication, or it's misleading, because he talks about when we go back to 2017, when the teams that were caught using the Apple Watches, the Yankees and the Red Sox, and then he sends out the memo to all the leagues and says, if you're caught using technology, you're going to take a penalty, a severe penalty. Okay, so he issues this penalty to the Astros. And of course, we'll find out more of what happens with this lawsuit with Jeff Luhnow. But if he hammered the Astros, he needs to come back and he needs to hammer the other teams that are caught using technology to steal signs, primarily the Yankees, if it's in this letter. And my fear is, if that's the case in this letter, and it comes out, I don't think he's going to do anything as harsh as to the Astros, because he has a favoritism to the Yankees. And that's something that a commissioner needs to not have in this situation.
Well, I mean, I think the bigger picture is that the way that they selectively punish the Astros and the way they punish the Astros kind of opens the door for more things. And it really kind of begs the bigger question of the leagues the league really being the people at fault for doing this in the first place. Like, you can't have all these screens around,
Right.
knowing that you have a culture that says steal signs to kind of get an edge, and then kind of be blind to saying, okay, we have the screens and da 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 da, but don't use them. And, or really making it clear to all teams what the punishments are, not just to executives, but for people using them.
Right.
And so basically what Manfred did to the Astros was kind of like, he did a letter, right? Jeff Luhnow says that he communicated to people that this wasn't supposed to be happening, and that there was actually, he claims, text messages that said, "Don't tell Jeff," right?
Right.
And so instead of them taking responsibility, or MLB taking responsibility for, not anticipating that these issues were going to happen, they just, said, okay, we're going to, do this to the Astros, recognizing that other teams were probably doing the same thing. And, we'll probably never fully know. Like, let's say they open the letter and we go, oh, okay, yeah, they were cheaters too, and da 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 da. But I mean, it's like there's a divide between two things, and this is not just in baseball; it's everything. You have culture and you have rules. You have, the culture is, what do people actually do? What do people get away with? What is encouraged in our society, or what's encouraged in baseball or football or whatever, and then what the rules are. And if there's a disconnect between those two things, you need to figure out a way of harmonizing it. And it's really clear that the culture in baseball has encouraged this for decades.
Right.
And then you end up putting screens in places where you're just saying, you're just tempting people to do it, because, you can make so much money. Mm-hmm. Like, there's money involved. There's winning involved. They needed to take responsibility for knowing that people might feel the need to do this. It's kind of like the parade, like when you're at a parade, and if everybody's just standing there and some people are standing on their tiptoes, well, then you have to stand on your tiptoes too if you want to see at the parade. I mean, right. Everybody's just trying to keep up. And so I think the biggest issue that baseball has had is they have what society as a whole has, which is you have your culture and you have your laws. And if they're not harmonized, you're going to have problems.
That's just like this whole, I mean, ever since this sign stealing thing came out, it's been one-sided, to be honest, because it's a lot of it has been geared towards, the Astros, but there's other teams doing it. I was listening to a podcast, the writer that wrote the Astro Ball, Ben Ryder. I was listening to his podcast, and he came out and said that he interviewed somebody from the Seattle Mariners that came to the Astros and said, hey, we had your signs, the Seattle Mariners to the Astros. So it's almost like, if this is something that you're as commissioner and you're hearing these things that, okay, possibly other teams are using technology to steal signs and whatnot, wouldn't that be something you might want to look into? I mean, you don't want to just go out and guns and blazing going after these teams, these owners, but it would be something that you would want to at least look into, because if it is happening in your league, then you need to get a handle on it before it gets out of control like it did in 2017.
Well, I mean, I think part of it is just changing culture and working through your processes.
Right.
Like for example, if, once they decided to, focus on PEDs, they focused on PEDs, and they put big punishments for it. If you're doing something like that with players, you have to do that through collective bargaining.
Right.
So that's, kind of an issue. But I mean, I think that you have to, the best thing is not punishments. Punishments, anytime that there's a punishment, that's a failure, because that means that your process and your cultures were not in alignment.
Right.
And that has to come from the top. That's a leadership thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And it's hard because, we have, that whole culture of, if you're not cheating, you're not trying kind of thing. And that's, from the beginning of baseball.
Right.
Okay. So you have to decide what you want to be as a league. Do you want to respect certain types of sign stealing? Do you want to take it out of the game altogether? I mean, Justin Verlander has expressed a couple of different ideas on how you could do things electronically.
There's really not going to be a way to take away sign stealing. I mean, it's been going on since the beginning of the game itself. But I definitely understand with the whole electronics, like get the TV screens out of there. You've got guys like, I'm going to use one of the Red Sox guys, JD Martinez, who he lost his swing completely this year because he didn't have the access to the replay of his at bat. So, I mean, like, you've got all this technology. You've got the iPads nowadays that are in there as well. It's going to be hard because you take one thing away, two more things are going to come in. They're going to find a different thing to try and steal signs with.
Yeah, I think any kind of policy needs to be one, education, getting what kind of culture that you want to have throughout the league from top to bottom. I mean, in the original investigation, they said, well, we're not going to punish the players for various reasons. And the main reason was because
garbage.
Well, I mean, the main reason is, they have collective bargaining,
Also because if they were going to get punished, they weren't going to say anything.
Well, that too. And then, but I mean, that they did that arrangement mostly because they have collective bargaining. Now, it may have been that, if the Astros knew what they know now, probably people wouldn't have cooperated. Who knows?
I think the thing is, like, with the fans, I know people like myself, like right now, I'm over the whole Houston sign stealing scandal. It's like a headache. I'm tired of hearing about it. Not. I'm tired of people like saying, "Oh, they stole signs. They stole the World Series for the Dodgers." It's like, whatever. You believe whatever you want, but it's like. It's the whole thing is just getting annoying, really.
Well, I mean, I think
it's more. It's really come to the point. I'm sorry, just like it comes to the point to where like the fans are more pissed off at the fact that the players didn't get punished. I understand why they didn't get punished.
Sure.
You understand why they didn't get punished. Rip understands why they didn't get punished. But you got you casual fans that are sitting there like, well, why aren't they get punished? They stole signs. They're the ones that benefited from it.
But they don't really care about it because other teams will take any one of those players. Please, George Springer, come to my team. I mean, seriously. At the end of the day,
ask any Dodgers fan if they'd like to take George Springer.
Sure. So, I mean, at the end of the day, with all of this stuff, yeah, does it get kind of tedious? Sure. But every fan base has some kind of thing that people want to say about stuff. And really, so what? Nobody can really take those memories away from you. People will think, like, we could come out with something tomorrow that said all the teams in MLB did X, Y, and Z, and we could investigate those till the end of time. People will always feel the way they do. And so my view of that sort of thing is people will feel what they do no matter what the evidence is. So let's just live our lives well.
Absolutely.
Now onto that Jeff Luhnow thing that you were talking about, because I've talked to Rip a lot about Jeff Luhnow and how I feel about him. Now, with this whole case where he's getting ready, he's suing the Astros. As a lawyer yourself, do you think he actually has a case?
Yeah, I do. I looked at this petition, and now, of course, the Astros haven't responded yet. But it's an interesting legal question. Like, we can't see what the contract is between the Astros and him. There's only segments of the contract that are part of the petition, at least the one that I saw. But my understanding of it is there's an arbitration clause, and there's a very limited set of circumstances where he could be fired for cause. Like, most of us don't have employment contracts, and most of us can be just fired for whatever reason people want to. At will employment. You can be fired for whatever reason they want to, as long as it's not something, discriminatory or otherwise against the law, like whistleblowing, right? But if you have a contract, the contract terms dictate the terms that you can get fired in. And according to this petition, there was very limited ways he could get fired for cause where he would not get paid. And so the bigger question is going to be, does the commissioner, in his decision to suspend him for a year, does that constitute for cause to fire him for the whole duration of his contract? And there's a question that maybe that's not the case. And he alleges that the investigation was poor, that the information that says that he knew that this was going on was poor, that they did not look at all of the evidence in doing their investigation, that the person that said that he directed it was incentivized to say that to keep his own job, and the person who was, kind of the staffer who was, the ringleader of it, according to this petition, he kept his job. So if doing this particular act is for cause, a for cause reason to fire somebody, then why did you keep the guy who actually did it? Why is he still a member of the team? That's an interesting question. Now, the Astros would probably say, hey, look, if this isn't for cause, then what would be? Like, you got suspended for the league for cheating and tainting this. The other thing that's going to be difficult for Luhnow is there is an arbitration clause, and part of the arbitration clause says that the arbitrator is either going to be Manfred or Manfred's designee, right? And so his point with this is, hey, look, he can't be the guy deciding whether this is fair or not, because he's the guy that screwed up the investigation. And
well, so Manfred's a douchebag anyways, and we all know that.
Well, that he's a douchebag is an illegal argument, but they said that in
I'm not saying that's a legal argument. I'm just saying, we know he's a douchebag. Nobody that's associated with that watches baseball, that guy got booed at the World Series for handing out the medal.
Yeah, that was something.
That was amazing.
So the way that the lawsuit is he asked for a neutral arbitrator, or his first request is to have the court hear it, or in the alternative to appoint a neutral arbitrator, and that's going to be arbiter, and that's going to be hard. That's the hardest part of his case. But the biggest thing is, I think they're going to work towards a settlement, because I don't think either one of them wants this to be protracted. But this is a very personal type of situation, and there's a lot of money involved. And sometimes when it's a personal type of situation, with your reputations at stake, sometimes you can't work stuff out.
Right.
Luhnow's reputation is destroyed anyways.
Is it? I mean, the way that he wrote the petition, it's fairly self-serving. In some ways, they filed, at least it appears this way. Like when you write something in a petition, you can say what you want, and it's protected from like defamation to put it in the petition, right? And so he's getting his version of the story across. And, anytime, let's say we were investigating you, right? And we
don't want that.
Yeah, you don't want that. So let me go through all your emails, your text messages.
Definitely don't want that.
Yeah, exactly. So let's say I did that. There's an investigation, and I said you did blah, 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 blah. Okay, and then you go, no, I did not do blah, 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 blah. I did this other stuff. Okay, so that's kind of what he's saying. Like he goes, I didn't do the blah, blah, blah. But his version of things is like there's a whole big section of the petition. It's kind of funny where he's like, the Astros were garbage. And then I showed up, and then they worked their way out of garbage. And I made you a lot of money. And, your minor leagues sucked. And I helped all that kind of stuff. They anticipated we'd win the World Series in 2017. We freaking won the World Series in 2017.
Bang.
I was sitting in the Crawford boxes for Game 5 of that World Series, and it was among the most fun times of my whole life. I bought a single ticket. I won't tell you how much I paid for it because my husband doesn't know either.
Okay, so we'll keep that. That is off the record there.
You can email me that.
It was worth it. I had a blast.
That was a great game. It still gives me chills watching the replays and the clips. And George Springer hit a home run. And it hits the fireworks, and it's like almost, it symbolizes the rest of the World Series.
Well, after all the Harvey stuff and all, I mean, it just was a different time. And, that's the thing. You have all those memories and, do with them as you may. But I mean, Luhnow, I mean, legitimately took a team that sucked and made it a team that didn't suck. And
I'll give him that.
And he's he waited until the end of the season to file this. I think, he has to go around his life and live his life, and he's trying to figure out a way to get the money that he thinks is owed to him, and maybe is, because, he got fired pretty quickly after the investigation was out. It's like, oh, okay, you were responsible. Like the letter that was originally sent was pretty much strict liability. Like if there's any electronic sign stealing, the GM and the manager are going to be held responsible.
Right.
So, I mean, is that for cause? Is that a for cause reason? Like he claims that he told people, and there's evidence that he told people, and it was, but was it enough? And is that for cause to fire him? And, he may be just putting this petition out there to the world to put his side of the story out, and that, AJ Hinch has a job, and AJ Hinch knew about it. Like he directly knew about it. So if he can get a job, why can't Jeff Luhnow?
Right.
Cora's got his job back too.
Yeah. Alex Cora.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an argument that Brad's going to try to jump on his computer real quick, so he'll be right back with this.
Excellent.
But I mean, that's a valid argument because, I get that a lot of baseball doesn't want Jeff Luhnow back because of his, reputation, the whole 2017 thing. But going back to this lawsuit, is it common to see how much money is possibly owed to I guess you would call him the defendant in this case?
He's not the defendant.
So
he would be the plaintiff in this.
Plaintiff. Okay. So, But is
I
it
thought
common
this was
to?
going to be a Yankee bashing podcast.
Bro, we'll get back to that in a second. It kind of stirred it. It kind of just navigated to the Astros. So I
My
apologize.
bad, people. My bad.
Well, I mean, in some ways, it's hard to bash on the Yankees because it's all been redacted out. Like, we don't know what it says other than its reputation. It's going to damage their reputation.
Well, my whole thing with them is like they got what's his name, Randy Levine, who's talking about like, oh, I'm going to be the one to go to the courts and talk to them and be in front of the judge. It's like, okay,
I have to say, the legal filing that they did to say that nobody should see this is absolutely a whiny piece of writing. Like,
well, it's the Yankees you expect.
well, and it's a ridiculous amount of money to be spending to, like, okay, do you guys know what the Straisand Effect is?
No.
Okay,
No.
Okay, this is a good illustration of something. Barbara Streisand had, she probably still has, a piece of property, and she wanted it to be private, and somebody took pictures of it, and she sued to get them to take the pictures down, which brought more attention to the pictures. Right. And so the Streisand Effect is this concept of sometimes if you use legal process or other things to stop something from happening and to stop attention to something, the
attention's going to come.
More people pay attention to it. And so, when you feel aggrieved about something, there's a lot of different things that you can do to deal with something. And sometimes the legal process is not one, but like somebody screwed up. It sounds like from this litigation where this was something that was offered in discovery and was not objected to, and it was known. And then at some point somebody realized, oh no, this is part of this litigation and it needs to be sealed. And so, somebody goofed up and the toothpaste is out of the tube. And, at some point you can't put that toothpaste back up in there.
When is it? When's the court date? Is this the 4th? Rick and I were kind of talking about this. Was it the 4th or 14th?
I have no idea.
Should have been something we all looked into.
When it comes out, we're gonna know. If it's.
I'm gonna be pissed if it's nothing.
The New York media says that it's not really anything. The Yankees claim that it isn't really anything. Well, what they claim is that it's not really anything bad, but the way that people might think of it will make it sound worse than it really is. So, and I'm like, really?
Okay, so what you used an Apple Watch or you used the phone or whatever to steal signs? I mean. We just had the whole Houston scandal. Then we have the Red Sox replay room whole thing. I mean, what else could there really be that would make it worse for the Yankees?
Well, I think that they just don't. They want to pretend like
they're golden child.
Well, all those Yankees players like, oh, the Astros, they're so bad, and maybe their own badness. Really? The people that were getting really high on their horse saying that the Astros were, so much worse than the rest of them. Really? And then there's, the recent writing in The Athletic talking about how pretty much all the pitchers are doing stuff to, the ball and kind of, taking whatever edges that they can.
Right.
The spin rate. Come on. It's been outrageous lately.
But, it's that same thing, culture and laws. Like, do you want to change the culture? Like, are you going, hey, boy, the spin rate's gone up. I don't know how it happened,
Yeah, there was something I saw since Trevor Bauer won the Cy Young about his spin rate, and it kind of just drastically improved this year. And of course, everybody's speculating that some sort of pine tar or something that was used to kind of help enhance that spin rate. So it's always talked about. It's something that it's never, until it actually gets proven. Or
I'm sorry. I'd rather have a pitcher that has actual control of the ball. I mean, than like somebody who's going to throw at my freaking head.
Right. And going back to this letter, I was actually watching a clip and I was trying to figure out how I can put it on the show for tonight, but it's Joe Girardi on MLB Network talking about sign stealing in the series between the Astros and Yankees. And he actually came out on air and said that he would get, a sign would be relayed from up above to the dugout to the runner on second. So he comes out and says that there was a system that they employed to steal signs.
Well, that was in 2017.
I have to go back and look.
That was his last year.
Yeah, so it was 2018 whenever he was on MLB Network, because then he jumped to
Philly in 2019.
Yeah. So it was 2018, but he actually came out on air and said that the Yankees had a system to get signs to be relayed. And if that doesn't tell you something to have Rob Manfred investigate this, then there's something else he's trying to cover up to ensure that his beloved Yankees don't get thrown into the mud.
Well, I mean, I think the bigger picture is, in some ways, you have to look at who that Astros team was. A lot of homegrown talent hadn't been on other teams. And then you have Carlos Beltran come to the team and Cora, and they're like, you got to get with the program. And then, there's some discussion that the Astros players didn't know that this was wrong, which I don't believe that.
Really?
I
want to know which one of those players didn't know that was wrong. Were they rookies that were brought out of T-ball?
Well, I mean, first of all, if you're hiding what you're doing, you tend to know that it's wrong. And I mean, I'm a pretty decent, baseball fan, but if I knew about the letter saying don't steal signs electronically, then I would think that the players would.
Yeah.
Great. It's definitely. I was reading something that the players tried getting Beltran to stop, and he just wouldn't do it. It's like, what?
Well, and at this point, it's after all of this has been said and done. We may never know the full God's eye truth of things. I've conducted investigations before, and I can have access to pretty much all the information, and still, at the end of the day, not completely know what. I can think I know what happened, but there are so many different people involved with this, and the Luhnow litigation says how many documents and things are involved with things, and also it's hard to investigate something kind of after everybody knows something hits the fan, because knowing something hits the fan changes people's perception of stuff.
Right.
Like if I know you're arrested for something and then I look through your text messages, I might see those text messages as being a little bit more evil than they were intended originally, for example, because I'm seeing that through the prism of knowing that you were arrested, for example.
Interesting. This whole letter is just, I mean, it's been going on since what, June, July?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the legal process is slow. whoa. There's like real people time, and then there's legal time. And actually now things are even slower with COVID because it makes things difficult with courts.
So if
that whole thing,
yeah, so this letter has to be opened by a certain time. Now, is that the Yankees approving when it is going to be open,
No.
or is there a judge?
It's a judge. Okay, so basically the judge dismissed the DraftKings case, as I understand it. Mm-hmm. But part of that is before doing that, the judge decided, hey, I had sealed this letter, but we have a presumption to not seal things, so I'm going to open this letter. And then the Yankees were like, oh, don't do that. So the judge says, okay, fine. You give me reasons why I shouldn't do it. And so they did. They were very, very whiny reasons and self-contradictory in places.
Right.
And of course, there was a response to that. And the response was basically, you guys are really whiny, and here's why it's relevant. And then there's pages of redactions. Now, the redactions, which is the blacked out part, is the way a court, or way that you make a filing to say what you mean to the court, but to the public, they don't get to read it unless everything's unsealed. And then the redactions go away and we get to see that letter. So I have no idea how the judge is going to rule. Judges get to decide, and it's not a question of how I feel about it or you feel about it. It's just the way the judge feels about it after reading all the briefs.
Right. It's just amazing that how much of this letter is redacted just kind of makes you wonder, is there really something else going on behind the scenes that we can all maybe attest it's some sort of sign stealing? But the thing that just gets me is, it's the most obvious thing is if you have nothing to hide, then open the letter. Yeah. And that's the thing that, there's been, pictures of, like we were talking about, teams using the iPads after MLB had taken all of the technology out. And some way, shape, form, or fashion, technology is going to make its way back into the dugout. It's unless you're Major League Baseball and you actually employ
nannies. They need to have nannies.
Yeah.
Dugout nannies, or whatever you want to call them. People probably don't want to be called a nanny in the dugout, but
that's basically what it's going to come down to. If Manfred wants to try to rectify this cloud that is over Major League Baseball, he's going to have to employ a team of people. Whether you really can't, you'd have to have one in each dugout. So you would have to employ 60 people to be in the dugout to manage and oversee these grown men who play baseball for a living, and to prevent them from cheating. And that's how it's going to have to be if he wants to get rid of this, because I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. Sign stealing is going to be here. This letter is just.
I have to say, I think that the way that the Astros were treated with that was a way of trying to Bigfoot the league and say, hey, look, finally we're putting our foot down. Finally, we thought we put our foot down before by warning you, and now we're really doing it. And we're going to really blame them, and we're going to ostracize the Astros, and you don't want to be like the Astros, so you better do things right.
Right.
But I think the better approach long-term and better for the league is to be transparent, to educate the players on what your expectations are, but also, verify by having processes in place that don't tempt people. Like you don't the $100 bill sitting on the sidewalk and go, no, don't pick up this $100 bill. I'm just going to walk away. If you know
screw that, I'm picking it up.
Also too, it's like telling a child don't pick up that or don't eat that candy. They're gonna try to eat the candy. Or don't throw a rock in this glass house.
Like, I don't think that the Yankees letter is going to be just like blowing our minds about anything other than just making us more cynical about the way that Manfred has conducted himself. But but Manfred doesn't have to do anything. I mean, we have baseball. We've had all sorts of unpopular commissioners of various sports.
Right.
There's some view that all the nonsense that happened in the NFL just put more eyeballs on NFL things, and there might be some view that all this discussion of cheating in baseball gets more people paying attention and being more energized, either for or against different kinds of things. It's more attention to baseball, even if that's negative attention.
Right.
It's personally, I don't think that negative attention is the way that you should run a league. I don't think that you should be alienating your fans. I think the fans want to know that the product on the field is fair. And it's going to take a while to regain that trust. And I think that they wanted to just say, "Hey, Astros, you shouldn't do it," and then shut the door. And then it kind of got bigger than they, I think, anticipated with the whole, like, let's retaliate against the Astros and all the kind of words and stuff. But people still talk about, Philadelphia booing Santa Claus. I mean, every fan base is going to have whatever their thing is.
Yeah, I
Wait,
agree 100%.
When did this happen?
A long time ago.
Am I not old enough to know this?
Yeah, that's an old person thing.
Before our time.
Hey,
Although, you don't want to mess with Philly fans.
No, they
I'm
they're very
learned
passionate.
that-
We'll call them that.
I'm good with them because
I learned that.
I share my
I
allegiance.
learned that last September.
Oh,
I went to a Red Sox Phillies game and I got razzed the hell out of, and I ended up riding away on my high horse because the Sox beat the Phillies.
yeah. See, now I'm pretty good with Philly fan, mostly because I'm not a Cowboys fan.
Same here. No,
Not a
Went
football fan, so
Oh, that sucks for you.
well, you also do some writing about the Houston Texans too, don't
Oh
you?
yeah, since 2006.
Oh wow. Okay.
yeah, it's just one sport I never was able to get into.
So what are your thoughts on Bill O'Brien?
Is this part where I like acted?
I'm just, one of my favorite lines is an old movie called The Gumball Rally. And one of the characters rips out the rearview mirror, throws it out, and he says, "Well, what's behind me is not important." And that's kind of how I feel about it. I want a new GM. I want a new coach. I want them to have a wide understanding of football. And I want the interim GM, Jack Easterby, to no longer be in the building because he was a big part of some of the worst decisions that have been made in the last couple of years. And it looks like he is very close to the owner, so who knows what's going to happen. But there's a fear that if he stays with the team, that might deter some candidates from wanting to be a part of it.
Right. I got you.
Or kind of yes sir, yeah, I'm fine with that guy, and even if he's not a good influence on the team.
Kind of similar to the way Rob Manfred is with the Yankees. I mean, that's he's.
I don't know what it is. Every time I hear that name, I cringe.
But I mean, that's how he is, in my opinion, and in my mind, that he kind of caters to the Yankees, and this letter that remains to be, unsealed. I think with all of the redactions that you showed us, it just leads us to kind of speculate that there's more that meets the eye. And
I think part of the Yankees' point is we cooperated with the idea that this was private, that we fully cooperated, thinking that this wasn't going to be out there, and now it's going to be out there. But you know what? The Astros fully cooperated, and all their business was out there.
Right. I think the Yankees need to do the same.
Yeah,
well, the Yankees are the prim and proper team,
Are they? Have they been?
That was sarcasm. I'm not a Yankee fan.
Well, if you don't have facial hair, then you must be Boy Scouts.
Oh, hey, hold on. I don't have facial hair right now, and I feel like you're taking a stab at me.
No, I'm just saying what silly Yankees.
My not having facial hair has to do with the No Shave November.
Yeah, no, but the Yankees have that policy with the no facial hair thing, and they're just kind of full of it.
No facial hair, no long hair, nothing.
Mustache.
Well, what's the point of being a ball player if you can't just look like a degenerate?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's just, I don't know. The Yankees are an interesting bunch.
I got to admit, the moment that Johnny Damon joined the Yankees and he shaved his entire face, I was like, no way.
That's the same with Garrett Cole. I mean, he had to
Garrett
shave.
Cole that was wrong. He's like a weirdo.
He still looks like a weirdo. He looked like a weirdo with the Astros, but he looked like he actually fit.
No, he looked great with the Astros, and then the Yankees was just wrong.
No, I'm sorry. No amount of money is going to make me shave or cut my hair. So,
bullshit.
No, I'm serious.
I call BS on that.
You give me $365 million or $324 million. I'll shave every freaking part of my face in my head for those 9 years.
That's a long time.
Don't care. I'm already going bald. What do I care?
Oh, this took a turn for the worse now. Well, Stephanie, this has been awesome. I appreciate you coming on and talking about this infamous letter that hopefully we can find out what is actually in the letter. Brad, you got anything else for?
Nah, I mean, anybody who wants to talk trash about the Yankees, I'm all down for it. I enjoyed it. It was fun. We got to talk a little bit about it.
This way, that is among the whiniest legal filings I have ever read, and I've read lots of them. This is you really needed to have tissues to properly read this brief. But it's so sad. We did all these things, and it got out, and we don't want it to get out. And seriously, guys. Seriously?
You can only imagine George is probably rolling around in his grave, thinking that Cashman's still why is Cashman still here? I mean, there's a lot that has to be done with that whole organization, and I won't get into that. But this has been fun.
Yeah,
totally been fun.
Absolutely. Once this letter comes back out, we actually have more information. We'll have to get you to come back on so we can discuss it more in detail. And we actually can find out what's behind this letter.
That sounds cool to me.
Excellent. Well, guys,
I'm down for that.
You're down for that as well. Perfect. Well, we'll do it once the letter comes out. Hopefully, it'll be out in December, or maybe hopefully we'll find out before then. That would
actually
be awesome.
I was reading something during the conversation. It said something about Evan Drellich was saying that they have to go to court in December, but because of the whole COVID situation, it could be pushed out until next year.
So now we have to wait longer.
That's
COVID.
Just open the letter already.
But the way that actual legal proceedings go on right now is kind of like how this is.
Right.
You do court just this way, and I don't see. I mean, I'm sure that they're going to do this type of court this way too, because there's no reason that you have to have people in person for this kind of hearing.
Right.
Actually, Stephanie, I do have a question for you, and it's been like boggling my mind. I don't know if you've noticed me like kind of like leaning in a little bit. What is that painting?
Okay,
it looks like a superhero from like Cartoon Network. Huh?
You don't recognize who that guy is?
You're going to tell me, and I'm probably going to know.
It is Racer X from Speed Racer. And
Really?
he's driving his car through the rain. But does he look concerned? No.
Nope.
He looks like he's having a good time driving in the rain, and everything's going to be totally cool.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for coming on the show this evening to talk about this letter. And like I said, once we actually get this thing open and we find out what's in it, we'll definitely love to have you come back on so we can talk more about it. And actually, since it's redacted, it kind of makes it difficult to kind of we can speculate what's in it, but we don't know. But hopefully we'll find out, and we'll love to have you come back on so we can talk about it, and we'll poke some more fun at it.
Okay, sounds good.
Fantastic. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode. Remember, you can catch the show on all the major podcast platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, or if you're watching us live tonight, we thoroughly appreciate it. As always, please go out and give us 5 stars. Tell us how we're doing. So with that, we appreciate Stephanie coming on, Brad coming on as well. That's going to do it for this episode, guys. We'll see you soon.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Rip Griffin Show. Make sure to subscribe to the show on all the major podcast platforms. Follow Rip on Twitter @RipGriffin2.